You can't let up. Get up for Tommy Vance today.
Hey.
Aye.
I'll start off about how I came from and all that. I was born in West Virginia to a coal miner and a stay-at-home Christian mom. And throughout my whole adult, until I hit the age of 17, I was raised in church, but really never had anything or wanted anything to do with. At 3 years old, I noticed when my anger problems started. That's when I could pinpoint back to where anger, rebellion, and all that started with me. And at the age of around 6 to 8, between 6 and 8 years old, my dad had an affair on my mom. And then I sat there and I thought, how could, this happen? A God-fearing woman that lived for God, and then this. So that seed of what led later on into my life had began to be created. All throughout, I hung through school and everything. I hung out with the guys that were more into the darkness, more into the heavy metal, the drug scene, the drinking. All of that, played a big role throughout my life. And somewhere probably around the age of 10 is when I really started smoking pot. I dabbled with things all the way back to, I guess, the age of 7, 8. But it became part of me all throughout, even through into my adulthood, that one incident. Around the age of 17, my mom, I ended up graduating early from school and got a job. And she told me, she's like, I can't force you to go to church anymore or anything like that. You're pretty much on your own. She said, all I can do is pray for you and hope that you do. Well, me being me that did not want anything to do with church, I thought, woohoo, here I am, I'm free. I can do this. And so there is about when that seed had been planted. Ended up getting married at the age of 21 to a girl that I had been with since I was 15 going on 16. We ended up getting married. By the age of 23, we divorced. Progressively, I started getting into a lifestyle that was definitely not hers. I was a paramedic for a city back in West Virginia, which I ended up ending the career when I was in my 30s, around 35, 36, when I went back to culinary school. But when we divorced, I went to go talk to the preacher that I had grown up with, and he did not, really take the time or have anything to do. I went to talk to him, and he told me, he said, right now, Tommy Lee, I don't have time to talk to you about things going on, and that I have to worry about, this recording that I'm going to do later on tonight. Take for granted that was 6 to 8 hours away. He was more worried about the PA system. I already had that doubt of God and not wanting to be around God. That sealed it right there. I walked out of the church, said a few nice, not so nice words to him, all combined, and basically said, screw Christianity and screw you. And I walked out, and then I started into the occult. That took a hold of my life for 24, 25 years. I worshipped and loved Satan. Anything to do with it, anything that could have it, it destroyed my life. Looking back, it destroyed my life. I've been married total of 4 times. All of them ended in anger. I put on a beautiful little church face for them due to the fact of them being from church and why I found, someone from church when I was into that. I cannot put those two together. And I put on the pretty face of church and played church. Every time, everything from me came out. The anger, the rebellion, the hate for God, and it destroyed everything. Moving on, my mother died in 2012. I got with my last wife in 2011. She knew me previous, and because my third wife and I had shared a condo with her and her boyfriend, which was a friend of mine through years. We ended up getting together and my mom died in 2012. That instilled even more anger and bitterness. That also started my addiction to pain pills and opiates. I was seeking and looking for comfort in anything I could. When that happened, my life took a spiral that the one thing that I was set to protect and all that I became. And one thing I despised was the drunk, the alcoholic, the drug addict when I was a medic. At this time, I was living in North Carolina, moved there, and was the executive chef over Lake Lorraine Spa. I moved back to West Virginia, like I said, in 2013 when the drugs really started taking effect. And I was introduced to one specific pain pill, and it ruled my life and continuation of opiates ruled my life until 2016. By then I had created so much of mistrust with family, created a divorce. It destroyed everything that I had. And being in 2016, I was still sitting there trying to put life together, and I had lost my home and everything, wife. We had lost 2 children, and going back, the previous first wife that I had been with, we had lost 2 children. And losing the first 2 children with my first wife, the first time it happened, I wanted family. I wanted that family life. And then losing the child drew me to wanting even more of a family. And when we lost the second, it pushed me away from kids to where I did not want kids. I don't know, looking back now, I see it was the pain that I was feeling, and I just did not want them. Did not have kids. My third wife, she, had a child that was 3 months old. I was going to adopt her, thought she was mine. Turned out later on when we got a divorce, she was not mine. And all that came about because where I was a medic and firefighter, all my DNA had been put on file during 9/11, and I chose to have it just in case something happened. She subpoenaed that and got all of that and sent me divorce papers in Pittsburgh. And when I called, the call that I had received from when I called her, we talked, and she said, "We have irreconcilable differences we cannot work out, and Sierra is not your child." Click, hung up the phone. I tried for a few days, and then later on got a hold of her, and the irreconcilable differences ended up being the little girl's dad. Going back to carrying on, I still didn't want children, wanted nothing to do of having physically of my own, but my last wife wanted kids. The love I had for her, I went ahead, it was like, all right, we're going to have to, we'll do this. We lost two, and that put even more bitterness towards the whole aspect of children of God, all kinds of creation. And I never respected human life to begin with, later, or throughout. I had no respect for mine nor theirs. It was just there. When in 16, I ended up moving back to North Carolina, taking the job again as the executive chef. And then things happened. I got tired of there. I took other executive chef jobs throughout being in North Carolina and ended up going to Minnesota. I figured, new start, new face, new place. Nobody knows me here. I don't know them. If you've never been to the part of Minnesota, I was 1 mile away from Canada. It is cold there. And to be from the South, dealing with negative 45 degree weather, it was brutal. But, it was something that was kind of peaceful because I didn't like being around people, and it's very remote. The only thing I had to deal with was the people in the kitchen and on campus of the resort. Well, that did not satisfy either. So when my girlfriend at the time decided to travel back, she was from Georgia. And throughout, I ended up going back to my last wife and staying there with her as a roommate. Things happened that the drinking started in Minnesota really bad. Every day, constant. And it carried on. And when I went back to West Virginia, it was during COVID, and things shut down, lockdown, all of that. And when that happened, that oscillated even more. What do? You can't go nowhere, you can't do nothing. Oh, places are open, to drive through, but you can't, But hey, the liquor store and all that's there, and you entertain yourself with that. Well, like I said, I left there and went back to Lake Lure. When I was there, it was a life of complete rebellion, a life of chaos. I still in the occult, found the people there again. And the reason that one of the biggest, they opened up arms, something that all throughout my life, and what forced me there was, yes, the rebellion and hate towards God, but it was a acceptance, a open family style atmosphere. Love, if you want to call it love, but acceptance in human contact. And it grounded me once that you look back and see what it really was. It was everything opposite of God, but mimicking God, but the opposite form. Well, life took big turns, craziness. I got with someone there in Lake Lure that I'd known for 17 years. Despised her the first time I seen her. I wanted to throw a pot at her in the kitchen. And the executive at that time he looked at me, kicked me under the table, and he said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm going to throw a pot at her. I don't like her attitude." Well, later on, I ended up getting with her, and she was an alcoholic. Someone who's drinking with an alcoholic. How did that go? Very well for my life. It grabbed a hold of me to a point that it destroyed everything. Happened. Around a year and a half before I turned my life over to God, I left the occult. Those people started making me feel weird. And when that, you being in it, and those people make you feel weird, there's something wrong. I look at that really at the beginning when I started paying attention some to God instead of pushing them off. Yes, I've felt the call before, but when it happened, I dove deeper into the occult and things, just to push it off. Well, after leaving, still wanted nothing to do with God and Christianity, but hey, I'm not in the occult, so I'm a little better now. 6 months roughly after that, started the complete downfall that got me here. I lost two $80,000 jobs in North Carolina. I ended up losing respect, friends, family, everything. And at the point I was getting ready to lose my house, I was losing my car, drinking constantly. And one day, after Thanksgiving I lost the last job where I was a kitchen manager. It was a family-oriented place. They ended up hiring the family and letting a couple of us go and replace the family. At that point, I done burnt every bridge in Lake Lure I could think of. I had a DUI that I accompanied from being in a parking lot at my work with 2 flat tires, waiting for AAA. That's how I got my DUI. But the path of that year led me to God. So, right at the moment of losing everything, I'm sitting at my house in North Carolina. I wake up, jobless, all of that, and this weight, like a blanket. I knew that feeling before, pushed it off, but this time it was a weight. What did I do? I got drunk so I didn't have to feel it. Passed out, woke up, it was even harder and even more there. I sat there for a few, and even before I decided to give my life to God, something was in there. I know I need rehab. I know I can't do this by myself. I started looking for Christian rehabs. I even gave my life to God yet. Went to a place, called a place in North Carolina, first choice, first contact. And I got in contact with, and was put through to Brooks. He just, said he worked with 120 some different places throughout the country. And he had nowhere available, which looking now is a blessing. It was in my hometown. I knew if I got tired of it, didn't want it, I could bounce out. I know people there in places and all that. So he contacted a place in Arizona. I've always wanted to live in Arizona, live and die in Arizona since I was 6 years old, or back in school. That place didn't have a place. Well, then he tried another place in California. I don't want to live in California, I'd like to visit, never have. That place, nothing. And he said, since you're in Minnesota and all that, there's a place there. Nothing. He said, I'll get back to you in a few. Well, he later on called me, or I called him, I can't remember. And he said, have you ever been to Florida? I said, yep. And he was joking. He's like, well, we'll see about this. And somehow it transpired and all that, and then called again. He said, "Have you ever been to Leesburg, Florida?" No. This big womp hit. And it was like, I know everything about Florida. The party spots, the biker rally area, because I belong to a biker club. And we used to rally in places, and Leesburg, no. We used to go to Daytona and Clearwater, and they're an hour from here. How I never knew this, I have no idea. He said, "Well, it's called a Christian Care Center." I was like, all right, Christian's in the name, it's what I was looking for, you know? And it's by this way I'd already gave my heart to God. That weight that I told you that I felt, I was like, God, I'm sorry. I said, I'm sorry for everything I've done. The destruction, the lives I've destroyed, the things that have happened. I said, I knew your calling before. I said, if you'll have me back, I will do anything and everything to honor you, because I feel like, I've been given another chance. And then all, like I said, coming back and forth and all that, somehow played in all that. I interviewed with Jamie over the phone. He told me to call back because he wanted to make sure. And now I'm living in North Carolina at this point. So now he told me, I can't remember how the events really went, that I have to detox and go to a detox and all that before, coming here and make sure, and all that. All right, at that point I was going to do everything. I ended up going to Hendersonville. I'd already quit drinking at that point. When I somehow, timelines I can't put really together during that time. But I'd already quit drinking 3 or 4 days before I went into Hendersonville. I was told I had to have something in my system before I go in. I thought, you know what, this is going to be the last hoorah, so I did it big in their parking lot. Went in, they didn't even send me through the ER. They done what they needed to and sent me straight upstairs. I woke up the next morning, December the 12th, in a detox center. Never been to anything like this in my life. Not only was it a detox center, it was also a place with mental problems. Same place that Bud Norton went. A little different. The guy next door to you wanting to kill people and everything else, and then the other guy there, you can't lock doors. But throughout all that, I still talked to Brooks and everything, and ended up getting another interview. I think it was on a Thursday with Jamie. And when I got that interview, the saying that I was accepted, and I wanted to call it with Brooks, and I talked to him first. And he's like, I'm pretty sure you're already accepted, but you still need to do the interview. So I did the interview with Jamie. I got accepted to here. Now, the biggest obstacle is getting from North Carolina to Florida. I had my car, but I was getting ready to lose it. Then, through God and everything, I ended up coming here on an airplane on a Sunday morning, December the 21st or 2nd. It was a Sunday. Brooks put me on that plane himself. Paid for tickets to get me here. I landed on those steps out there after coming out of Orlando at 6:25. I looked around at 6:28. I walked through those doors. First person I met was Dave Fleming. That was a character right there. And from the beginning. And I thought, where am I? What am I doing? Well, fast forward, everything has happened, and working and dealing with things here. Things have been brought out that I didn't even know that were issues, problems. I had spent numerous times in psychologists, psychiatrists, and all that to find out roots of problems. Jamie found the biggest root, 30 minutes. Anger, rebellion. I'm like, all right, well, working through all of this, I have just come closer and closer to God. Relying more and more, because when I relied on myself, as I've told you all, I made a mess out of it. Things have been shown to me great ways that I could only imagine because I'm into nature and things like that. I've learned from even a lizard, watching it on the back, run back and forth on the fence. First thing I thought, I don't have a brain. It would climb up on that fence, fall down, climb up, fall down, climb up, fall down. And at that moment I was going through a lot of failures, fallings and things. Ended up getting sure footage and climbed up to the top of the fence, looked around and went over. I still thought, I don't have a brain. There's a hole right there you look through. Why didn't you go through it? A lot easier. Sat there for a minute and then something come to me. What I was feeling anyhow. No matter how many times you fall down, pick yourself up, keep going, keep going. And when he landed on that time and started back, he launched himself over to a dry spot to climb up. I took that dry spot as when you God, when you completely trust on the solid ground, you can climb up that mountain. Enjoy the top for a few before you go through that valley again. Tell me if you took that easy route all your life, like that hole he could have. You see where that took you. Apparently he seen something I didn't, him going into the hole. And then one of the biggest impacting things from the man sitting right there, Jamie. When I figured out I had emotions and feelings, they're surprising. They'll surprise you. They'll sneak up right on you, won't they? Just like a dog.
Go on.
I'll just go ahead.
Yeah.
He gave the analogy of, have you ever watched a dog fart? I was like, what? We're here talking about emotions. What are you talking about? He's like, welcome to having emotions and feeling. It's just like a dog. When that happens, he turns around and like, what is that? He said, that's what emotions are like when you've never had them really. There they are. He's like, looking at being a Christian and having emotions. Something new for me. Because like I said, I was very emotionless, careless. That, the career of everything in my life brought me to here, to his plan, God's plan. For my salvation. And would I change the events of my life? Humans would say, and even me would be like, yeah, I'd change them knowing what I know now. But it was all a pre-plan for my life and my salvation. That's all I care about now. The things that happened in the past, the things that I'm dealing with, I created them. And through God, I would be able to go through and deal with. The amount of letters that I have wrote, even some that I didn't even think about having to write, they're there. And like Eddie said, letters, these are stupid. Why am I doing this? You never really picture things until you see it in black and white. And one of the things in black and white that stood out to me also is with my dad. He said he loves me, he has, and he said it with words. But seeing it in black and white when he said, son, I love you and I'm proud of you for what you're doing for your life. I don't think he ever told me he was proud of me that I can remember. It took me until I was 48 years old to have that. I wouldn't change it because of where I'm at now. I would like to thank Jamie because he accepted me here. He allowed me to come here to build and get a footing in God that as of today, less than 7 months of my life, I've been a Christian. And I knew nothing about Christianity. What I knew was twisted, warped things of the place in the past. Serge, the talks that we've had and things like that. I thank you. But I don't know if he's in here. Sitting there talking to him as my counselor and just talking. And the guidance and stuff from him. I thank you. He also is or the man that baptized me. I chose him and wanted him. Been there, done that, been through it. And standing there as an example of what God can do. And Jamie, the things that God can do. Changing Serge, changing lives. So with that, I'll tell you all, this ain't easy, sitting in this class day in, day out. You know how many times I wanted to run up out of this building and burn it all down and say, forget it. Test the theory of once in his hands, never be snatched out. Deathbed repentance, if it happens. No. Then I think about what I had then. But seek these guys, talk to them, knock down the doors. And just one thing, know that these guys love and care for you. And talking with Donnie even on things. It's just everybody here cares and loves for you. And with us guys, it's kind of hard. I'm sure there's been many of us here that's not felt it. With that, seek these guys, love God, respect God, and praise Him for allowing you to be here and alive to do it. And don't take it for granted. It does really suck sitting in these chairs, but it's for the best. With that is all I have to say. Love you all, and keep up.
Thank you, Tommy.